Welcome to Running Unicorns, sports talk that goes beyond stats and stadiums. I'm your host, Christina Southam Townsend. Each episode, we take one word and run with it, exploring how sport connects us, shapes us, divides us, and ultimately unites us. Welcome to the club. Come, run with us. Hey, Running Unicorns, it's Christina Townsend. Excited to have you back today and introduce you to Dennis Heathfield, our guest. He is really a dynamic individual, and I'm really excited to share a conversation. We talk about the deaf community, and that includes hard of hearing, HOH, and the deaf community. So just want to share that as a part of education for this audience. Dennis is full of information and just great insight. So I'm excited for you to get to know him, and let's get going. Hi, I'm Christina Southam Townsend, your host of Running Unicorns, and here today with Dennis Heathfield. Welcome.
Hi, Christina. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for making me part of your thing. I really appreciate it.
Hey, I'm excited. We connected over social media, which is amazing, and what Dennis is up to really caught my attention, and decided this would be such a perfect conversation to have. So we'll get into it. But Dennis, tell us a little about yourself and what you're up to.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. So I guess maybe start with the basic stuff. I'm a recently retired 65-year-old straight white guy. I'm a husband. I've been married to my wife, Lori, for it'll be 41 years in October. I've got 2 kids, 5 grandkids. I live in Charlevoix, Michigan. So a little town on the water, about 50 miles south of the Mackinac Bridge. If you know anything about Michigan, I'm a recreational athlete. I bike, I run, I swim, and sometimes all of those together in triathlons. Mostly running, I would say. I'm a Michigan State and all Detroit sports fans, Detroit team sports fans. So this thing's about sports. I wanted to make sure I got that part in. So
I grew up in Ohio, as Dennis knows. So, but thankfully we're able to pull together, and despite those rivalries, we can still have a good conversation today. But we'll forgive you just this time.
Yeah. All right. Okay. We can talk more about that. So, and then the other thing about me is I have profound hearing loss in both ears. And I was born with some mild hearing loss that got progressively worse as I aged. In my early 20s, I started wearing hearing aids, and I can't hear much of anything without them. So, that's kind of, and I rarely wear my hearing aids when I participate in sports, in the activities that I do. So, yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, no, great primer. I think helpful to know, your lived experience, where you're coming from, and that will be meaningful as we get into the thick of our conversation today about your work and who you hope to reach and why that's important right now. So, well, what I like to do with these episodes is have a word, and the word we landed on was quiet. So tell me about your word, and then we'll go from there.
Quiet. Yeah. Okay, good. That's great. So quiet is what I hear or don't hear when I don't have my hearing aids in. And our tagline for Deaf Athletic is defy your quiet. And so if you think about quiet or my hearing, there's actually some things about my hearing loss that are good. I can sleep through thunderstorms. Crying babies on airplanes, not a problem for me. And when I run, for instance, all of my other senses are really amplified. My breathing, just visually, like noticing things. I think much more than it would if there's noise going on.
Yeah.
But there's also some challenging things associated with my hearing loss or my quiet. Sometimes not being able to fully participate in the conversation because you can't follow everything that's being said. Thinking about, people that don't know I have hearing loss, but sort of see me sitting there, being quiet. What do they think about me? Or do they think less of me because I'm not joining in the conversation? And then when I'm out in sport, there's been times when I've gotten surprised by people or vehicles or whatever coming up behind me. So anyway, the word quiet, without, I don't want to make it deeper than it really is, but the word quiet for me has meaning as it relates to my hearing. There's other things that I can think about, about myself, like my work ethic. There are good things, and there's some good things associated with that, and there's some things maybe that aren't so good. So if you keep going with this, it's just, I think, a little bit about it's about self-reflection and getting to know yourself better and accepting yourself, and that there are things about us that are good, things about us that we can work on. And I think that's a really good first step, necessary step to really being able to better understand people, other people, especially people that are different than us, is taking a look at ourselves first and sort of accepting, our, whatever it is, our biases, our privilege, our, good traits and our bad traits, all that stuff. So because your podcast is all about bring people together. One of the things I've learned, and mostly in the last several years of my life, is that getting to know myself better and continue to work on the things, my rough edges, really helps me to be able to better understand other people, especially those that are different than me. So hope that's not too much.
Oh, no, that's amazing. I think something as a runner who isn't experiencing that same quietness, even just simply unplugging and connecting with the world around me. I am one of those people who I do often have headphones on or something, but I do try to unplug. And I think that hearing or not, there is something particularly about the running community or outdoors, recreational athletes, that there is something about that silence and the quiet that can come with that. I'm sure a lot of athletes experience that in different moments, whether it's pausing in the middle of a game and looking around and trying to kind of quiet all of the noise. So whether that's an action or an experience of pausing. Anyway, I just want to kind of flag that for people who, regardless of hearing or not, that there is a choice to be quiet, to tune into quietness and be present. And I think that's a really powerful practice, regardless of where you're coming from. But to your point, that really can affect your experience and help you feel more. But also, as we dig into Deaf Athletic, which I love to also process, and we'll get into all this, but how that led to you creating Deaf Athletic. So let's get into that.
Sure. So this idea actually came to me, a few years ago, and it wasn't until I retired from Cummins last July that I actually had, enough extra time to actually do anything with it. But came from is pretty simple: is these experiences of either a vehicle or in a competition, another runner or a biker coming up behind me, or me moving into somebody else's space because I didn't know they were there. I mean, there's probably just as many instances of that as just me being surprised. And so the idea was, what if I could inform people somehow that I can't hear? And so the first thing is high contrast colors. That's pretty basic, so people know you're there. It probably applies more to when you're out by yourself, on a road or something like that. But high contrast colors, and then literally informing people with, like on the back, is our logo with the word deaf, athletic. And this is the other color that we have. And
Great.
the Deaf Athletic logo on the back. And then we have hats also. So they're informing people. So it's this process of, boom, the visual impact of letting other people know you're there, and then trying to inform people. So that was really the idea.
Just to kind of summarize that, so you've had your own personal experience, but there's first and foremost the safety issues. There's a legitimate safety issue of making sure you're comfortable and able to recreate safely and perform at your best. And that requires a level of feeling comfortable and safety. And there are all kinds of safety issues, but hearing, whether that's a horn or another person coming up or anything, or creating awareness to those around you. For anyone listening, the colors are, the shirts, high contrast and very visible, with the word deaf on the back. So I think just making that point of being able to perform and recreate safely is huge. And that's part of what inspired this initially.
You're exactly right, Christina. That is the fundamental. It was the fundamental idea, the fundamental purpose of the brand and the products. The second thing is about, so if somebody sees this, or or a hat, or me or somebody else walking around in one of these shirts, maybe it generates some curiosity. Maybe
Yeah.
it initiates a conversation, and through that, people become more aware and understanding of not just people that are deaf or hard of hearing that participate in sports, but other differences even. And so there is an element of hoping that this will inspire greater awareness and understanding and curiosity that can lead to other good things.
And I think if I can add this, I think to your point, it highlights that someone, even if there is something that again could make someone feel uncomfortable potentially, or concerned about safety, that by wearing this, it's representing and showing, hey, you can participate too. And in fact, this is a way to do that. And so it's letting other people know, oh, do you know someone who's a little nervous to go for a run or a little nervous to do something? This is something that can help them in a stylish, good-looking way, that's, you don't have to wear a vest, but something that says, hey, I'm participating and I'm here and showing up. And I think that's a cool way of showing people that is possible. And there's a way to do it safely.
Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head. And you also mentioned that the third part of the brand framework, if you will, whatever, is that it's got to be something people want to put on. So the fabric that we chose it's a high performance fabric. It's breathable. It uses this is botanical odor control material called High Q mint that was developed in partnership Patagonia and this Swedish company High Q. The colors obviously are very carefully chosen, and then the logo itself. Hopefully we've hit the nail on the head with the logo. So safety, raising awareness, and creating understanding. Third, utility and performance, and then the last thing is being a values-based brand, that doing things for the right reasons to begin with, but then also taking some initiative, intentional steps to give back, whether it's giving a share of our proceeds to organizations that are working in the deaf and hard of hearing space, or taking better care of the planet, things like that. Yeah. So that's cool. Sort of what the brand framework is all about.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, in our kind of pre-discussion, we talked about, as a former race director, I wish that I had thought about something like this for our runners and our participants. And we could have offered, something in checkout, whether it was collaborating with a partner like you, or offering something of our own. But I wish I'd thought about that, and that would have been a way that as a race director, I could formalize that. And one of the things we talk about with Running Unicorns is, how do we take these big ideas and make it personal, whether that's local or on a broader scale from a bigger partnership or sponsorship. And so that can be, hey, if you are planning a 5K or a local triathlon, or something from an elementary school to the New York City Marathon, and I'm not calling them out specifically, I just give an example of a large marathon or large groups of people, that this is something that people can be aware of and implement of, hey, how do you create safe opportunities for people to participate and help other people around them be aware? Because I know sometimes when I am in the zone, I am just, and especially if you're going all out, and you're really pushing yourself, I'm lucky if I don't trip over my own feet, and and so let alone get in somebody else's way. And so I think there's something, and it's a good reminder as an athlete, participant, whatever sport you're doing, to be aware of your own personhood in space, and remember, the world doesn't revolve around you. But I think that's something that's an easy take home of whatever scale you're doing at a community event. Is there an opportunity to implement something like this? Anyway, I think that's something really cool that, for me, was kind of a take home thought of, oh, I can do this. This is something that I can collaborate and create more opportunities and safety.
Yeah. Yep, that's great. Another thing that I think that I would love to see is having like a big screen of captions, live captions, pre-race instructions, or the PA person, the MC of the race that's talking about all this cool stuff that's going on. If you just take 20% of the population is sort of in this community of deaf and hard of hearing people, and there's varying degrees, yes, but there are certainly people other than me that are going to be lining up in,
Yes.
say, I'm going to do this little 5K, 6K thing over at Mount McSaba Park on Saturday. There's going to be other people there that either maybe don't use hearing aids but still can't hear,
Yeah.
or use them and take them out like I do, that they're not going to hear a thing. And it's pretty, fairly easy at the starting line, wherever everything is set up, to put up a screen. It's just like real time is like shooting the captions out there so people can, it's a really pretty simple thing.
Yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned that, Dennis. I think it's really interesting. Again, just even your average consumer. I was reading something the other day how average listeners are turning on captions, whether they, quote unquote, need them or not. To be honest, I can't remember what some of their findings were, but they were saying people are doing this just as a part of paying attention or understanding a little bit more specifically what's happening in an event. And even when I'm at a live event, I'm thinking I can't hear them. I don't know what's going on, or people are distracted. And that is brilliant. I wish that we had that at our events when I was, very actively hosting. And that's where people today can do something like that. We already have so many screens up. And I think culture has leaned on people to create individual solutions, often on their own device, which is amazing. There's live transcription people can do. However, why not offer that, from an event perspective, and have that be something available, and, between people using their own solutions and a broader solution. And again, that's where if someone can't hear, or a mic cuts out, or, whatever else, there's something that can still be available. So I think that's brilliant. And those are the kind of things that, if we just stop and say, okay, is there something more we can do? Have we thought of all the solutions? And clearly not. But I think just stopping to ask the question and think, that's great. We've already come up with some projects for folks to to implement, and I think that's brilliant. So shifting gears a little bit, as a seasoned person, at Cummins and in your work there, and then shifting gears to creating your own startup and this business, how do you like to look at something that's a big vision and turn it into something concrete? What's your approach to that? Yeah, would love to hear about your thought process of taking this to an idea. What were kind of your first steps of, I'm going to do something with this?
It's a great question. So I would say the first thing is, I think whether it's a business idea or if it's something like this, it's trying to build a brand. I think the first thing is having conviction, personal conviction. And if it's not something that you're excited about, that you can, when you share with other people, they get excited about it. But that conviction is what carries you through when things get tough, inevitably. So for me, in fact, I've got a little bag here with a quote from Brian Stevenson, the Equal Justice Initiative. And it says, you can't change the world. You don't change the world with the ideas in your mind, but only through the conviction in your heart. And so I believe that's really, sort of the first thing. I think the second big thing is recognizing what you're good at and what you're not good at, and getting other people to help you with the things that you're not good at. So
that's money, Dennis. That's money.
In my business life, I feel like I was pretty strong with strategy. I was pretty strong with like building teams and mentoring people. I wasn't great at, and really didn't enjoy operational details, not a great, financial mind. And so I always needed to add
like that,
or
so
include people like that. So
yeah.
in this case with Deaf Athletic, I'm not a social media guru. I didn't know anything, nor did I want to learn really anything about how to actually do fulfillment with my bare hands. So, we hired a company to do all of our fulfillment, even the development of the product, basic ideas about what it had to, what we wanted to do with it. But so, legal expertise and, so on and so forth. So I think that's the other thing is, and I think it goes back to what I mentioned earlier, is knowing yourself well enough to be able to say, these are the things I'm good at. This is what I'm going to add to the process. But the things I'm not good at, I need to get the right people on the team. So those are, I think, maybe the two biggest things, Christina.
Oh, I think that's huge. The conviction, there's a lot of power in that because especially when you are starting your own venture, there's no one getting you through but yourself. So you you have to be your own best cheerleader, and sometimes to feel either the pain of the need or the hope of the reward. And that was something that when I was building this race with my sister, who was co-founder, it just it got me excited. It was so much work. It was so much work. I feel tired just thinking about it, but I knew we were building something really special. And when I saw people there, and having a great time and getting across the finish line, it was just so absolutely rewarding. And I think you've hit on something there that as someone, who knows how valuable the product is that you've created, I can see how that drives you. It drives you to say, this is, I mean, one, it's cool, but this is a need, this is an opportunity and a solution. And so, that keeps you going, I'm sure. When it is hard, when you are coming up with the solutions. And then to your point too of tapping people, division of labor. Amen. There's there's so much power. I have found as I've gotten older and have more life experience, I'm less worried about impressing people and saying, hey, if you are an expert on that, let's tap into that experience. It's always good to, expand your experience as well if that's interesting to someone. But hey, if someone wants to geek out in a way that's not my thing, like that's great. So I appreciate you sharing your perspectives on that because I wholeheartedly can echo that.
For sure. Yeah. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it works out.
Yeah, well, I'm excited. So kind of shifting gears a little bit. Again, the podcast is about sports and culture and social impact. So when you think about inclusion in sports and recreation, what do you feel like is maybe something that's often misunderstood, or you wish people knew, or something that you hope that as people are out also recreating, whether it's on trails or out and about or at an event, they can be more aware or more thoughtful. Yeah, or even just make it more fun. I've seen so many new things from, people with visibility issues or impairment, being able to feel a buzzer when somebody makes a shot, or being able to, feel the movement of a ball on the court and all of that. And so it's really cool seeing those things. But what would you hope that people would think about or open their minds to?
I don't know. This whole like inside outside tack that I've been, referencing. I think participation in sports, it doesn't have to be competitive, but it's a way of taking advantage of ability to participate in the world in a different way, and in, being outside and enjoying nature, or maybe not, maybe it's not outside, maybe it's so it's, if it's something that you're actually doing, it's probably making you healthier, and you live a longer life, and you feel better about yourself, you sleep better, you eat better, you're nicer to people because you feel better about yourself. There's just all kinds of, or if it's an event that you're just attending and watching other people, just thinking about you're sharing this experience with all these people, probably many of them strangers, and you don't know the first thing about maybe the person sitting, 3 seats down, what their political ideology is, what their religion. You don't know anything about them, but you do know that you're sharing this moment, and probably maybe cheering for the same team. There's some shared humanity there, and sports just, I don't know. I think the first four days of the NCAA basketball tournament, are the best 4 days in sports. And I just get so excited about it. And my wife rolls her eyes at me all the time about that. But anyway, but as you're sharing this thing with other people. So I think there's a personal piece if you're participating, and certainly even if you're watching, it sort of can be really just sort of personal. But then there's also this thing, if you're participating in a race, you're sharing that experience with other people. And sports just is one of those things in life that has the ability to bring people together like that. That's really pretty cool.
I love that. I think what you just kind of brought it home there with is how that's something that can bring us together regardless of background, ability, hearing, or language, or it's there's something about a pumping heart, whether that's participating or witnessing or cheering as a fan. It can be really powerful, and it can bring people together, whether you love or hate the team. You're in it together, And I was listening to somebody mentioning, that part of their identity was loving to hate their home team because they were so bad, but they loved them. And and there's a shared humanity in that, and I think that's really powerful. Something that it just made me think as you were talking about that, as I've been on courses around the world, that there's something where, again, I love to travel, and I did an international course, and it was so cool that even though I didn't speak the language of these other people, or they didn't speak mine, I had a little American flag on my person as a part of participating. And I cannot tell you the thrill it gave me to hear people say USA. And it almost brings tears to my heart just hearing that even though they didn't know how to, anything else to say to me, but they saw my little flag and that was their way of cheering me on.
Yeah.
And it was so cool that they could witness I was trying, I was doing something, and they wanted to shout something and beyond clapping or whatever else. But there's something really powerful that, regardless of language or whatever else, that we can lean on things like sport and the love of sport, whether that's, again, fandom or participating, that can really unify people in a really special way.
Yeah.
Just cool. Well, Dennis, okay, kind of wrapping up a little bit. One of the things we'd like to talk about is opening hearts, minds, doors, and wallets. What would you hope people, and this can be personally or professionally, that people would open their hearts, minds, doors, and wallets to? And we can get nuts and bolts, or we could be a little more ideology. But yeah, what would you hope for our listeners from our conversation, or thinking about, again, our word quiet, that people be open to?
I would hope that we designed the shirts and we had a bunch of them made, and we built a website, and I've had help bringing my story and bringing my conviction to life and putting it into words that I hope will resonate with people. If you think about the first purpose of the brand and our product, it's about creating safety, and the only way that happens is if people actually have the shirts on when they're participating, when they're doing things. The only way the curiosity gets raised and awareness gets raised is if people actually have the product on. So yes, of course, I want people to open their wallets and be part of this movement, if you will, and help us bring the broader mission of the brand to life. If people, for whatever reason, aren't motivated to be aware of this shirt, I hope that through listening to this conversation, at least inspires them to think about what they do in their lives, and whether it's sports or at work, and making room for people that are different can be very powerful, rather.
And finding that common ground too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, and something else as you were talking, I was thinking about is, so one, I think just being aware, but also just like you did, you saw an opportunity and you did something about it. You took action and you thought, what would it look like to have a safer, experience, but also that shows, representation of the variety of athletes that are out there. And you did something. And that's something that I think all of us can look around and say, what's something that I care about? What do I have conviction about? How can I turn that conviction into something actionable? A very small thing that I've not small, but also significant, but something as I'm a newer parent, as I've looked for places to feed my baby, and maybe this is personal, but I've been amazed at what places have spaces for women like me who want to feed their children privately or don't. And it's interesting to see, for example, I went from airports having little mothers pods or lactation pods, to I went to the Air and Space Museum the other day in DC, the Smithsonian, and they had a gorgeous suite, family suite that had little private rooms. And it was so cool to see how people are creating spaces for women and children and in families, growing families, not just women, but to participate, whether that's again at a museum or a sporting event. I'm seeing more sporting venues having, quiet rooms for kids who may need a little bit of a break. And it's really neat to see people saying, how can we engage our fans in a way that makes it easier for them to participate?
Mm-hmm.
So again, whether that's as an athlete or as someone attending an event, if again you have a child or someone who needs a quiet space for a minute and then they want to go back out and hear the hockey cheers and whatever else, that's great. But it allows an opportunity for more people to participate, and not just from a social perspective, but a business perspective. It's a missed opportunity if you have families, young families who like me are wanting to go out and enjoy these experiences. And I would imagine they want my money and you want us to create traditions starting from a young age. And so if we get our little kid, becoming a hockey fan at a young age, well, that's a lifelong loyalty of fandom and merch and tickets and everything else, And so whether it's engaging someone, again, whether it's a lifestyle choice or it's a life circumstance, just thinking differently of how to be inclusive. And that's one, it's not just a nice thing to do, but it's a smart thing to do for a variety of reasons. And so as both the consumer and the creator, you can either create an opportunity and say, hey, someone's not doing this, so I'm going to do it, or speak up and say, hey, there's an opportunity here. I may not have the resources or expertise, but I'm going to flag it for someone who does. So I think those are a few things that people can take home is thinking about places they go, again, participating or leading or creating space to think about.
If I could add one other thought to that, I love your examples. And another thing that we can encourage people to think about doing is, if you're in one of those moments where you're sharing an experience, a race or watching your favorite team, look for opportunities to engage somebody that's different than you in some way in a conversation. And you have the perfect thing to start the conversation with. Yeah. Isn't this a great game? Are you having fun at the race? How long have you been running or biking? And
the weather,
whatever. One thing leads to another. And all of a sudden, this person that is obvious, at least, appearance wise, is different than you. You find out other things that you share. And you talk about your differences as well. And we need more of that in the world today, I think.
Yeah, I love that. Well, we'll wrap with my final running questions. It is clear you are a runner, but I'm going to ask you, Dennis, are you a runner?
I am a runner, yes.
You're a runner. Okay, so my kind of fun questions are, is there anything you're currently running to, running from, or running for that you want to tell us about?
I'm running to prepare for, I've got a couple of half marathons coming up that I'm preparing for, and I've just sort of launched into my, semi-formal, training program to get ready for those. One is at the end of September, and one that's in Columbus, Indiana. And the next one is in Detroit, the Detroit Free Press Marathon in mid-October. So I'm running towards those things, and I'm running also just to stay healthy. I'm 65, and I think it's a way to keep me agile, so I can keep up with my grandkids and all that kind of stuff. So
there's nothing more humbling than small children tiring you out.
Yeah.
So it's a good way to keep you humble and motivated. So I think that's awesome. That's one of my motivations right now is I want to live a long life for myself and those around me. And it is genuine motivation. It does create that conviction we talked about. Well, Dennis, this has been absolutely a delight to get to talk to you, hear about the quiet in your experience and the quiet that we can all choose to experience. I think that's something honestly more of us could use is pausing, being in the quiet, whether that's again chosen or not, but leaning into those spaces and that experience. Any final thoughts on that you want people to take home?
Yeah, leaning into the things about yourself that have this dual identity, and being okay with it, owning it, and if there's parts that you want to change, do something about it. Just get after it. I also want to thank you, Christina, for inviting me, and I wish you all the best with your venture here. I think it's a great thing, something that's really needed. I think it's going to be very entertaining. People have fun with it, but I think it's a great opportunity for people to learn, and you're bringing people together, which is a good thing and needed. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, I'm excited to keep this thing running, and it's a cool opportunity to get to have conversations like this. So with that, Dennis, thank you so much. And until next time.
All right. Take care.
That's a wrap. Thank you for joining us. And now it's your turn. We invite you to continue the conversation and run with it to your circles of influence. From the boardroom to the kitchen table, share how sport and play can connect, unite us, and ultimately be a positive impact in our communities. Life is short, and we're so grateful you spent this precious time with us. Go outside, go for a walk, sign up for that 5K, get tickets to something, get sweaty, and have fun. We hope you'll be back soon. And in the meantime, join us on Strava, social media, or visit runningunicorns.com to learn more. Thanks so much for being here. And until next time, keep running. If you had a good time today, tell us in the comments what you enjoyed and what you hope to hear more of. You're also welcome to reach us via email, team@runningunicorns.com, with a message or voice note. This has been a production of Southtown Communications.